and now it's cool temperatures out there, the lights are up, and the flames are going to be up even higher, so they're going to keep all the May candles lit and hang on to your seats.
The teams did get an opportunity for a test session last night, very similar conditions, but this racetrack today has just seemingly gotten better and better. How do they approach it?
Well, I mean, they're going to look at it. They're going to see what they feel that they can get. And I think with 4 qualifying runs, I think a lot of guys are just going to go for it tonight. What the heck, you still got 3 runs to get it right if you miss it on tonight. So I think you're going to see a lot of guys go for the stereo, as we used to say back in the business. That's an old Leo stereo reference. John Force would understand that. That was his sponsor. So they will definitely step on these things just to see what's going to happen. And I think the track's going to stick, and they're going to just fly on this track.
Now, you weren't here last year for the inaugural event. I know you watched along. When you look at what is here on the property, what you've observed over the last couple of days, what do you think of this event?
I mean, I like what they did. I was up to try to do this job. Jack Beckman did a great job, but he went back to his day job driving for John Force. So I got called in. I blamed him for me being there, so he kind of got to laugh at that. But I mean, if you take a look at the rundown, I mean, Top Fuel Funny Car and Pro Stock, they got 8 car fields for Top Fuel and Funny Car, and 8 very good cars, 16 very good cars in Pro Stock, and you're going to have 4 qualifying sessions like we talked, starting with tonight. So it's like I said, I think they're going to go for it. If it was me and my old crew chiefs, they would stand on it for tonight and see. And it kind of reminds me of Indy. Indy, we used to have a Friday night session, and everybody would come out, and that was the best qualifying session of the year back in the day. And I think this is going to kind of maybe match up with that.
But now here's the fun part of this event. So we're going to have the 8 car field and Top Fuel Funny Car, like you mentioned, full 16 car field in Pro Stock, but it's a chip draw. So you're going to go out, you go for that big number, you go for the speed, you do everything that you can in these sessions, in the qualifying sessions, but then you draw a chip to see who it is you're going to race in the first round of eliminations.
Hey, you run a career best and then you pull a chip and you got to run Austin Prock in the first round. I don't know if I like this or not, but obviously it's different. I mean, it puts another flavor into the final equation of this racing. So we'll see what happens. I'm anxious to see. I didn't watch it last year, so I'm kind of a spectator this year, and I'm anxious to see how it plays out.
Take a look at the weather. 75 degrees right now that the sun is starting to set. Beautiful images here from the drone that we have on site. Clear skies. You see that. Not only 9-mile-an-hour winds. It's pretty perfect.
Yeah, I'll say it doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Only 91.6 degree track temperature. That's the thing about this racetrack. You watch it, you see as the sun, it's setting behind the trees now, but as it's gotten lower and lower this afternoon, the track has started to get more and more shaded.
Yeah, and it's just going to get tighter and tighter.
It's 3 different categories here from the pro ranks. We've got the Top Fuel category, we have Funny Car, and then we also have Pro Stock. Pro Stock will be first at the line for qualifying. Let's take a look at what is a Pro Stock car.
Stock cars are door slamming, gear banging, 500 cubic inch, naturally aspirated, nostalgic race cars. The Pro Stock category has 3 6-time world champions, Erica Enders, Jed Coughlin Jr., and Greg Anderson, all competing for big money. Pro Stock also has young guns like Aaron Stanfield and Dallas Glenn.
Now you know what a Pro Stock car is, but you can get closer and closer to Pro Stock qualifying session number 1. When we look at the testing numbers, we've got some young drivers that are out here, Mike. Some of them, it's the very first time that they've even been at an event. First time going down the racetrack with another car in the other lane. Yeah,
and what a place to start at. I mean, you're racing with the big guys here, and some of the drivers coming out here that are new to the game. You're going to feel a little bit of pressure, but that you need to have that. I mean, to be a good driver, that's what it takes. But a lot of these young drivers that come in, especially in the Pro Stock ranks, Pro Stock, I would say it's probably one of the harder cars to drive, if not the hardest, to do it well. I mean, you've got to hit your shift points perfect. You got to launch, and do everything and keep that thing in the groove. And these young kids that start out, running stock, super stock, I mean, they transition over. I'm telling you, the sportsman racers that are successful in those classes, when they move over to any category, in my opinion, of the pro categories, they adapt very good.
Look at all of the numbers that were run in testing, and again, it's just testing. A lot of teams trying different things, getting ready for qualifying, getting ready for the rest of this weekend that does bring on the competition. The names that are at the top, names that we know. Erica Enders coming in as the reigning champion from this event last year, multi-time champion in her own right. But then Greg Anderson sitting number 2 when you look at all of the runs that these teams have made. You still have to rise to the occasion up against the best.
You know, Pro Stock is the perfect category to talk about this. I mean, they are so close. I was watching in one session, they had the first 5 cars, or 6 cars, ran within 0.02 of a second of each other. It's just amazing. You know, Greg's at the top, and then it seems like the same guys kind of keep on winning, Erica and Greg. You know, that's because they're so good, and we talk about the pressure thing, and you have to be so precise in that Pro Stock car to keep on winning it, and they're very good at it, but boy, they got some tough competition this year.
Derek Kramer returning this season. Dallas Glenn, another driver who's won multiple events himself, one of the future of KB Racing, I've heard him called. And Greg Anderson, you know, he'll be the first one to tell you he has less years left in his career than he's already experienced. But you've got Dallas Glenn over there to carry the torch. As we get ready to get ourselves set for qualifying, let's go ahead and sit it down to the third member of our broadcast team. Here's Tommy Johnson Jr.
Man, with the temperatures cooling down out here and watching these cars on the track this morning, some of the numbers they were running were record numbers. I saw a ton of top fuel teams in the low 360s. Funny cars, 3.80. Now the track is cooling down, getting tighter and tighter. The weather conditions are getting better and better. It's almost sweatshirt time here in Florida. The track, I think, tonight will be excellent. It's been better all week so far over last year, so the teams are going to run record numbers tonight. Look out.
All right, so 2 racers, Tommy Johnson Jr., Mike Dunn, experience race wins in Top Fuel and in Funny Car. You have both said the exact same thing, that the track is tighter and tighter and to watch out.
Well, and the other thing I've noticed, too, is the test session. I don't know how many of the teams are actually testing something really radically new, because usually when you're testing something new, you start out just kind of making a 300-foot pass or go to 8th mile or whatever just to check everything out. It seems like these guys right out of the box, they were just going for it every run. You know, they seemed like they backed it down a little bit, made sure it got down the track and ran some top fuel cars, ran some 370s, and then it was 360s, and we saw 363 from Brittany this morning, and a 65, which was a career best for Sean Langdon. And I mean, just, you know, outstanding time. So I kind of questioned, these guys are so secret, they're not going to tell you anyway. Very much. They'll tell me a little bit, but I don't think they're testing. They're not making any really big changes. They're just refining and making small changes and coming out here and just standing on it.
In terms of combination and tune-ups, I think you're exactly right. There aren't any wholesale changes that I've heard about over, walking through the pits. But one of the things that is a test for a lot of these teams are the changes in personnel. And a lot of the teams have new people in new places, or just new in general. You started your career as a crew member. What is on the line for them?
Well, this format I think is really good for the new crew members, because now you have an opportunity to work on that race car in race conditions, and it's completely different than when you qualify. Not only do you have less time to turn the car around, but you have to be much more precise. So this is a good test, I like, because otherwise you kind of go in cold into the first couple of races, and it takes some of the new guys, even though they may have done it on the other teams, trying to gel, trying to work together with everybody. It's like getting a new play-by-play person. We got to figure out how to get our synced in together, so that we don't go and blow up at half track, you know what I mean? So that's a good thing. I like that format, because we didn't have that. I mean, just to be able to go out and just do a race and get everybody on track, and then on top of it, you're racing for big money.
You see down at the starting line, opening ceremonies are now beginning. Let's go ahead and listen in with Courtney Enders.
And if you're watching at home on FloRacing, we appreciate you, and it's going to be a great, great show. We have the baddest drivers in the country here, maybe even the world, to put on a fantastic show for you here. You're going to see all kinds of things, 330, maybe 40 mile an hour. Pro Stock is going to be up first, but we just wanted to welcome you guys. And before we roll into our invocation and our national anthem, we want to acknowledge all of the military members and spouses and first responders. Go ahead, stand up so we can honor you guys. Thank y'all so much for your service. All right, we are going to roll, and we have Racers for Christ here on site. We have Eddie Bauer up here to do the invocation and to bless our drivers and to bless everything that we have here at this event. So, Eddie, here you go.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Would you all please stand up with me? Let's bow our heads and let's just ask God for a great weekend. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for this opportunity to be back here in Bradenton at Bradenton Motorsports Park. God, I thank you so much for all the hard work that has gone into this event, for the countless hours, for the sponsors, for all the drivers coming from around the country to be able to put on this amazing show. God, I thank you so much for the beautiful day that we've had, and I just thank you so much for the blessings you give us. God, I also right now, I just want to take a moment. We unfortunately had an incident in Orlando last week, and a young lady lost her life, and we just want to lift up that family right now, God. Just please be with them as they are grieving the loss. And we know that the racing family is a family around the world, and we know that they are all keeping this family in our prayers. And God, we just want to be with them. But God, as we're getting ready to start racing here tonight, we just want to pray over each and every driver here. We want to pray for safety for them. I want to pray for all of the safety safari that's here, working hard, being able to watch over them. And God, I also want to pray for all of our men and women that are serving in our military, that give us the freedoms and keep us safe. God, just help us enjoy this weekend and let us kick off with a great first round tonight. For it's in Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Eddie. And this one is a huge honor of mine. I'm going to throw a personal thing in here. My good friend, I get to introduce Brenna Coughlin. You may recognize that name. Her husband, Troy Coughlin Jr., is going to be in a Pro Stock car here in a minute to bless our nation here. It is not an event, and we do not kick off sports without saluting our country here. So, Brenna, with the national anthem, it's all yours.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We see everyone down at the starting line. Mike, that means it is nearly time for Pro Stock qualifying session number 1 here under the lights. First pair that we're going to have up to the line will be Matt Latino and Greg Stanfield.
Yeah, Pro Stock's getting ready, 16-car field versus 8-car for the fuel cars, but we've got a lot of very good Pro Stock racers right now, Matt Latino and Greg Stanfield. Greg Stanfield coming back. It's been a while since he's driven. I talked to him. His son Aaron's been driving and doing a fantastic job last year. I told Greg it's about time he got a good driver in the seat. Of course, he laughed at that. But Greg, to be honest with you, all kidding aside, fantastic guy. That whole family's great. And back in when I started doing the TV stuff, I mean, Greg was one of the guys I'd go to that would always give me real good information, honest, and just tell it like it is. He didn't sugarcoat nothing, and I like that. Those are my types of guys, and so I always got a lot of good information because I was not a pro stock guy when I started, but I did learn a lot more during the years I did TV. Still no expert though.
You know, he was the same for me when I started covering drag racing with you guys back in 2011, and his last full season was 2012, so I didn't get a whole lot of time with him, but he was laughing over in the pit area yesterday. He said, you know, I taught you everything that I could. He's done the same thing for Aaron, so excited to have them out racing together, their whole family out here. And then you have, on the flip side of that, you have Matt Latino. He is the son of Eric Latino, who debuted in drag racing in the pro stock category back in 2023. So he is a second-generation racer. Grew up at the racetrack. His dad drove Sportsman for years, but this is his very first event after getting his pro stock license.
Well, you know, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? So you might as well start here. But, you know, his dad did a good job last year. He finished in the top 10. So, you know, Matt's going to go out there. He knows he's going to have a good car. He just got to, it's like I said, very, very important to be able to hit those shift points at the right time. And with the competition being so close, I mean, if you just barely miss that thing, now it's like if you just miss it by 100 RPM on your shift point, you know, you could go from second to seventh just like that, you know. So it's and that's the part I like. I mean, these drivers really have to drive these things, and you know, you got two. You know, Greg Stanfield, you know, he's going to be a little rusty, but you know, he's done a good job in the past. And I know Matt, he'll rise to the occasion. But you know, first run, probably got those jitters. Let's just go make a nice run down the racetrack. That's your goal on this particular pass right now.
All right, doors are shut for both drivers. See him inch to the line. Two very different scenarios here for Matt Latino, Greg Stanfield.
Matt spun the tire big time. Greg spun the tire big time. Matt goes down the track. He had a 995 60 foot. I think the track will hold a little bit more than that, but still runs a nice 657 and 209 miles per hour in the traps.
A good solid light too. That 045. That's what you're talking about. You just make sure you go through your marks. You hit all of your points that you need to hit just to get down the racetrack. That was a really solid first qualifying run for Matt.
Yeah, I was surprised that Greg spun the tires that hard, you know, because obviously I still believe the track's very good. Maybe something just, you know, it's you know, they're probably going for it, and it just didn't stick on there. And so maybe it's going to take a few cars to go down the track before it's able to stick on that all-important launch, because that pretty much sets the stage for everything else that happens down the track.
See the teams taking a look at the starting line. What is it they're looking for?
Well, I mean, they're looking for, you know, how the rubber is, you know, because a lot of it is what, you know, you can put the traction compound and everything on the rubber, and you can have a good, nice, smooth surface of rubber, but it's also how the rubber bonds to the surface, whether it's concrete or asphalt. So you can tell. I remember Alan Johnson, Top Fuel Alan Johnson, always go out there. You know, now they got all these gauges, and he'd just walk out there with his tennis shoe, and he always had the same shoes, and he just spin his foot to tell how much grip there was on that racetrack, and a lot of that had to do with how well it bonded to the surface. And he was a master back in the day, still is, but you know, he's got guys that go out there now. He still walks out there from time to time and sees how that track is, and you can make the adjustments.
All right, you see the next pair getting ready, but this is Bo Butner behind the wheel, says Stephen Bell on the side of the car. Stephen Bell was supposed to be here. He actually made all the testing passes over the last couple of days, but had to leave, unfortunately, due to a family emergency. Bo Butner was on the property, able to hop right in, and he actually broke in this car. This was Bo's car back when he ran full time. So for Bo to get back into these conditions, what's going to be important for him?
Well, I mean, Bo's a seasoned driver. I mean, he's a natural, I think. I mean, he gets in there and he always seems to do a good job, makes very few mistakes. So I think he's going to be just fine. The other lane, you know, with Brandon Miller, you know, this kid, I mean, he's, you know, pretty good. I mean, he actually has, we talk about KB horsepower and elite. Well, he actually has Roy Johnson horsepower whose son Alan Johnson ran Mopars, and I was a teammate with him back in the late 1990s. And Alan Johnson actually won the championship in 2012 in pro stock. So Brandon, I mean, you know, and this kid, you know, he's one of those when we talk about the sportsman. I mean, he comes up and he actually has a 2000 S10 pickup truck that he's running in Top Sportsman, which is a fun car to drive, our truck, as we should say. So he's been around the block. He's one of the kids, like I talk about, they have that experience coming in here in the sportsman categories, and they seem to really be able to adjust really well to whatever they drive in the pros, I think. But obviously, pro stock, most of them is where they go to.
Just 21 years old. He ran 4 pro stock events last season. He was able to qualify for 2 of them. So to your point, he doesn't have a lot of experience in this format, but this is a great opportunity for him to learn and gain some of that. Showing there wasn't a whole lot of rust on there.
I told him. He's a natural.
6:58 for Bo, a 7:45 for Brandon Miller. Still things that they can learn with. 3 qualifying sessions for tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can always learn things on any run, but you know, Brandon had a good launch. He had a good 60 foot in the 980 range, and about 330 looked like he started getting a little bit to the right side out of the groove a little bit, and then by half track he was kind of out of the run. I mean, he lost a lot of time, and Bo just did his normal thing, just goes out there and hits his shift points and keeps it right in the middle of the lane and makes a nice pass.
See all of the cars back in the staging lanes getting ready. Another blast from the past. How about Larry Morgan coming back out to run this weekend?
I mean, you know, he's been doing this for 40 years, and he just loves it. You know, he just loves racing. Great engine builder, great driver, great tuner. He just comes out and has a good time. And he usually, I mean, he's always competitive when he comes out, even if he just runs 3 or 4 times a year.
They're talking to him earlier this afternoon, and he said, you know, I ran a few events last year, but when he says that, he has a huge smile on his face, and you can tell that, you know, over the years, the sport has not jaded him. He still has a passion for it. He loves being out here. You can tell as he walks through the pits that these are all of his friends, and he couldn't pass up this event. But again, in this pair, you have all of the experience of Larry Morgan, you know, 46 career finals. He has 12 pro stock wins, been doing it forever. But then in the other lane, you have Corey Reed, who doesn't have a whole lot of pro stock experience. He's a racer. You know, he's the son of Annie Whiteley, so he's grown up at the racetrack and certainly knows his way around here. But all of his experience was on 2 wheels up until Seattle of last season.
You know, you could say since Corey drove rode pro stock motorcycle before he made the move, the switch to pro stock car, you could say, well, that's kind of a big jump. But I know one guy that did something, even maybe one notch better, was the pro stock motorcycle top fuel traction. That's John Brown. So I believe if you can ride a pro stock motorcycle and do it well on 2 wheels with no seat belts and just hanging on for dear life and do it well, you should be able to drive this pro stock car, because Antron showed us that, hey, like he said, anybody can drive a top fuel dragster. Of course, he was talking to me. I said, I'm proof of that.
And Corey Reed, you know, even without having a ton of experience, he does have a lot of experience behind him, being part of the KB team, having Rob Downing, having Dave Connolly in his corner. Dave Connolly is a great driver in his own right. Having somebody over there like that to mentor and coach you through the process, that goes a long way.
Yeah, Connolly's one of the best in the business. I mean, he was brutal and was fearless. You know, I remember the burn down with Connolly and Warren Johnson up at Denver. I don't know how many years ago it was. I mean, it was classic, and Connolly didn't pull any punches. Of course, Warren ended up winning. He said, I forget what his quote was, something like, I guess I should have.
Larry Morgan was away first. Having problems. 660 for Larry Morgan.
208 miles per hour. Yeah, you heard Corey when he let the clutch out, and that thing just did not hook at all. You just heard it just, you know, you hear the engine missing. That's because it's just spinning the tire so hard, and the RPM's just not in the range where it's happy. It's up a little. Obviously, it's up high. and it just sounds terrible, and obviously the only thing you can do is push in the clutch at that point.
It's worth noting too for Larry, he hasn't been here for the full 3 days of testing. He came in today and got his first taste of this racetrack, so not nearly as many laps as the rest of the drivers in any of the 3 pro categories that we have here. That was his best run so far.
Well, Larry's smart. He's been doing this a long time, and he knows how to drive, and he knows how to run those cars. So, not a big surprise. I mean, I believe he'll improve. Conditions will be a little bit warmer tomorrow than the first couple. Well, the first session I think will probably be good, and the third session we'll have to see how that second session goes. Depends on cloud cover, I think. But the conditions tomorrow will still be good enough to improve on that 660 for Larry Morgan if he hits the combination right.
The next pair ready for the water box, that is Fernando Quadra Jr. in the left-hand lane, his brother, David Quadra, in the right-hand lane. When you go up in qualifying and you're making a run against a teammate, that's a big opportunity to see what the racetrack is like on both sides in the exact same conditions.
Yeah, and that's good information for the team, So you're in exact, like you said, exact same conditions. You got the car set up, and they're probably set up a little bit different, so you can get that information, which would be good for possible improvement tomorrow if they need it. So there was rumors that Jason Lyon was going to be driving for Fernando Quadra's Jr.'s car, but we're showing that Fernando's in there. We heard that Jason was not, but we're showing on our timing and scoring that Jason's in the car. I texted him. He told me that, no, I don't think so, but Jason has a tendency to change his mind. But we'll get confirmation on that. I believe it's David in that car. And whoever it is, they're racing in great conditions right now.
That's Fernando Quadra Jr.
AKA Jason Lyon.
This one we know is Fernando.
Yeah.
This is the left-hand lane, and their father, if it is the 2 brothers that are up there at the line together, Fernando Sr., who we know is a pro stock competitor as well, tuning. So he's been very busy behind the scenes as well. Looking at that fire suit, that does look like it is David Quadra. He had surgery in the offseason. He was having issues with his knee, and that was the reason that he didn't want to necessarily finish out the weekend, because clutch is an easy thing to activate.
Yeah, you need a good left knee. If it is his left knee, we
into the 654. Bettering that 657 in the left-hand lane from Fernando.
There's 2 nice runs.
Let's go ahead and get down to the starting line with TJ.
Oh, we're down. We're actually down at the finish line. Hey, Larry Morgan, you've been doing this a few years. What brings you out to this event?
I guess I was invited. No, we're a part of the pro, and Beaver called me Tuesday. He says, "You want to get down?" I go, "Why not?" So that's why we're here. Well, we haven't touched the car since last year. So
nice run, 660 right out of the box, and it's nice and sunny here.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? No, 660 is pretty good right now. I think that probably I was real loose in the lights. I don't know what that was all about, but that was a pretty good run for now. We're excited to be here.
Good shakedown run. You'll be better tomorrow.
Thank you, Tom.
Of course, Tommy Johnson's down at the top end. That's where every reporter wants to be at this stage of the game. With the next pair up at the line, it's Derek Kramer and Chris McGahey. Chris McGahey is another one of the drivers who also touches every part of the car. He's the crew chief. He is a machinist by trade, so it's something that he's grown up doing this. His dad's out here with him as well. It's a whole family event.
Yeah, as we watch them get ready for their burnouts, we'll see what happens here now, because the track, I was expecting some better 60-foot times. We've seen some 980s and some 990s, but it seems like the starting line might not be quite as good as what we thought it was right now.
Larry Morgan made the comment down with TJ that he got squirrely at the lights. Is that what he was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think Larry Morgan's very good at reading a track, so I have a feeling that he knows what's going on, so he probably feels that's why that 660 is probably a pretty good time, especially for him. And he would know better than anybody else.
But then we did see that 654 followed up by David Quadra, so the track can still hold a little bit more. Chris McGahey is one of those drivers that would love to take advantage of it. It hasn't been the smoothest of weekends. He was a little off in testing compared to where he wanted to be. Now that the lights are out, though, it's time to go for it, right?
I mean, now's the time, but, you know, they've also watched cars in front. You know, we saw a couple spin the tires in that lane off the launch, so, you know, they're going to sit there and try to assess what they think the track will hold. They can adjust that launch RPM. You know, higher RPM, the car will launch harder. They'll lower it if they think it doesn't hold it as much, and they can do that leading right up pretty much to the run. And so that's a, you know, obviously that's a call when you're trying to assess what the track is doing, and it's kind of a judgment call. But you also, you know, and you're trying to figure out, hey, the track's going to probably maybe start getting better. So we'll see what they do on this thing. Hopefully they'll get it hooked up. That's the main thing. Wow, pair of 657s. Chris McGahey, he had a good 60 foot. Derek Kramer was a little bit slow off the start, but then he made it up on the track, or down track, went a 657.3. Chris McGahey's 657.4. That puts Derek in number 4 position and Chris in the number 5 spot.
And for Chris McGahey, that is his best run of the weekend. But the pair of 657s, his best run in testing was a 657 with an 8.
Yeah, so I think they're going to be really happy. I think they hit the setup just right off that launch because, like I said, we saw a couple guys in that right lane have troubles getting that thing off the starting line, and they launched good. It wasn't a great launch, but it was safe, and then they ran well down the racetrack and got nice, did a nice job getting in the show.
Well, Chris McGahey just ran in the right-hand lane. It's his son, Mason McGahey, who's going to get into the left-hand lane when it's his turn to come. So that pairing is going to have some information to work with as well.
Well, I have information for both lanes, but I think, you know, Mason probably would like to have the same lane because then they could relay the message, information what they did to get it down that right-hand lane. So, but if they feel the left-hand lane is a little bit better on launch, which I don't see much difference from that standpoint, other than, like I said, a couple guys struggled off the starting line in the right-hand lane, but it's coming around, and they'll make the right decisions, I think, because they're starting to get a handle on this racetrack, I believe.
And that is Mason McGahey there. I like the green that they've added to the hood of that car.
Those green SS stripes.
24 years old. Mason, he's got a couple of seasons now of experience. Let's go ahead and get back down to the top end with TJ.
Hey, Grit, 657 first run, not a bad start. It's you had struggled a little bit in testing, but now come the race day, you hit it right on the money.
Yeah, we went 57 last night testing in the same conditions. I mean, we felt like we found some issues with our car. We probably should have took it to Midas and had a brake job done. Was kind of hoping that would help it some. It's a little slick, so I don't know. Felt like we could go with 56, but I'll take my 57 for sure.
There's a couple guys that's a little slick out there.
Saying it is slick, and now he gets to watch at the top end as Mason McGahey, his son, the third-generation racer, gets ready to make his first qualifying pass. Grandfather Lester McGahey working on the car with Chris.
Yep.
Troy Coughlin Jr. in the other lane.
Yep, Troy Coughlin Jr., that Coughlin family, they definitely know how to race not only pro stock, but sportsman cars and everything. In fact, his brother Jeg asked me one time if he thought if I thought he could drive a top fuel car. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" I said, "If you can drive this pro stock, you can drive a top fuel car." So, and then the Coughlin boys, they can drive anything.
You always know when they're around because all of the cars, that Jeg's yellow.
Yeah, except for Jegs.
Except for Jegs.
He's got Skag orange, right?
He does now. He's a businessman.
Yep. Just want to get that money to go race. Oh! Thing didn't move a foot.
654 for.
I tell you what, Mason, we talked about getting that thing hooked up on the starting line, 972 and 60 foot. Tops off with a 648, 654. I can't say this right, I'm too old. 209 miles per hour. Nice pass.
That was a great pass for Mason. We have 3 more chances at qualifying tomorrow, but for right now, that puts him right in that number 2 spot. We still have a couple pairs of cars to go. And if you're wondering how this run order has been set, it's all based off of the points from the end of the NHRA season. So that's why we saw some of the newer drivers down at the beginning of this session. We're going to start getting into the drivers who finished higher up in the point standings last season.
Yep, and we'll finish up with number 1, 2 points would be Dallas Glenn and Greg Anderson. That will be the last pair.
So we have Jag Coughlin Jr. Just talked about that Skag Power Equipment orange.
Hey, you know, I got a Skag more. I got a 2007 Turf Tiger with a 29 horsepower Kawasaki 61-inch deck. Gonna have about 1,000 hours on it at the end of this season. I'm gonna have to do a full service on it.
But now that you're retired, you have time for that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. When I was working, I'd have hired somebody to do it. I do it myself.
There is Fernando Sr. Means that it is another one of the Quadra boys. It's Christian Quadra up now. He'll be in the left-hand lane. He's been to 2 career finals, just 25 years old. Doesn't have as nearly the experience that Jag Coughlin has in the lane next to him. But for Christian Quadra, you know, one of my favorite things about this family and the way that they've really come into the sport is the fact that Fernando Sr. has made the boys be hands-on. They were not allowed to get their license. They were not allowed to start making passes until they understood how the cars worked, until they were able to go back to the pit area and help turn the cars around and help put them together and really be able to help through the entire process, not just strap in and drive it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of these cars nowadays, you know. In fact, I was talking with Greg Stanfield, and 2015 was last year I did the show, and I said, well, did they even have fuel injection, or were they still cars? He said, no, I think there were still carburetors when you did it. So now they got the fuel injection, and you know, that's completely different. He says there's good and bad, like in everything. You know, you don't have the magic carburetors anymore that just show up every once in a while. It's more consistent with the fuel injection. But like
great launch, Christian Quadra.
And Christian had an 019 light, and Jag's just in qualifying though. He's not worried about it. Jag Coughlin actually had the nice pass, number 2 spot with that 654 with a 6 at 209 miles per hour. Christian goes down to the number 10 spot with that 662. Looks like he had some problems after the launch.
Jag will be pleased with that run. When you think about the difference a year makes. Yes, he has a ton of experience, but he did take 4 years off. Last season was his return to full-time racing, and now having the rhythm back. Yeah, it's been the off season, so he's had to get it back over the last couple of days. But now having everything, to your point, the cars are so different now, and they've continued to evolve and develop. That was something he had to get used to as well.
But you know, we talk about natural drivers, and we got plenty of them in drag racing, and Jag's obviously one of those natural drivers, and he can adapt to anything and drive anything. And I believe that the really, really good drivers can do that.
Speaking of natural drivers, Erica Enders, 6-time Pro Stock champion, the defending Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout winner from last season. She will be in the left-hand lane. The right-hand lane. See that black car? That's Aaron Stanfield, son of Greg Stanfield, who we just saw qualify earlier on in this session. The two of them now competing together for the first time for a full championship season.
And we were talking about how good Aaron Stanfield was. He finished 3rd in the points last year. I mean, with some pretty hefty company. So this kid is the real deal. He can definitely drive. But Erica Enders, what can you say about her? She's been a little bit under the weather when she got here. I haven't even had a chance to talk to her between, her being a little under the weather and me trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. I haven't had a chance to talk to her, but there's Erin's dad eyeing the car, making sure everything looks right, and we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, Aaron Stanfield, another one of those drivers that can drive just about anything in his 33 career wins. 14 of them have been in pro stock, but his sportsman wins alone. And in fact, he's the only driver in NHRA history that was able to double up at the U.S. Nationals last season with the pro stock win and a win in Factory X. So he can also get behind the wheel and just do it.
And like I said, they're really good. The funny thing, you bring that up, like for fuel cars, they used to have they used to want to run the alcohol dragster injected setup so they could have the same type of standard that they would go into the fuel car. I always like the guys that do the pedal run, pull 3 gears on an alcohol funny car or dragster back in the day, because I thought that made you more rounded of a driver. If you can jump out of that, like Pat Austin was the best. He could jump out of that and jump in a fuel car, completely two complete different disciplines, and do extremely well in both.
With a 651 with a 9. You ask what the track can hold, it can certainly take that.
Hello. Yeah, she was on it all the way down. 976, 60 foot. Just carried that thing all the way to the end with a great 651.9 at over 210 miles per hour. Nice.
She led all of the testing sessions as well, putting herself right to the top, her best run of the weekend. We have 3 qualifying sessions tomorrow, Mike, and as they all stack up, we're gonna get another shot at this.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, we're gonna see some good runs tomorrow, I guarantee you.
See Dallas Glenn in the left-hand lane. Talked about him earlier, carrying KB Racing into the future. He was a crew member for years and years. Now showing what he is able to do behind the wheel as well.
Yeah, he's done a good job. I mean, what he did last year was pretty impressive, but what was really impressive was Greg Anderson, who's 62 years old, in a clutch situation in the final round, winner take all at the finals, and getting the win for a 6th championship. That was amazing. I think right now we're going to see what this right lane is going to do. I mean, Greg Anderson, he's been doing this a long time. He's going to see what he can get this thing to launch at and see if he can make a really strong run.
As these drivers make their way back to the starting line, you make that point. 62 years old for Greg Anderson, and last season that was one of the things that he was very honest about, just questioning his ability, what he's able to still offer to the program in terms of as a driver. You weren't 62 when you stepped out of the car, but you still have to ask yourself those questions.
Well, yeah, I was 45 when I stopped driving, and he's 62 and I'm 68, so I know what happens I know how hard it is to do what he did, even though I've never won at 60. I mean, I still cycle with my buddies, and your whole approach and your attitude and your training and everything is completely different than it was when I was 45. For Greg Anderson, same thing in that car. He's an athlete. All these drivers are athletes. They have to really stay on top of that. And at the same time, Greg Anderson, one of those guys, he's hands-on. He wants to know everything about that car, but he's also very conscious of what he does, I'm sure what he eats and stuff, and his exercise program. And it doesn't have to be much at 62. I found that out. You don't have to go crazy. You just have to be consistent in what you do on whatever program you have. And Greg Anderson obviously had the right program last year.
It's a sport of reaction, and staying sharp is certainly at the forefront of what these drivers have to do in all of the categories. Identical 60 feet times. 6:51.5 for Dallas Glenn.
Wow.
Getting around Erica, moving himself up into that #1 qualifying position by 4th out.
What about that? I mean, both 978, 60 foot. So Greg, I mean, he nailed it for that right lane. That was very impressive. But then Dallas, you're over there figuring he got off the starting line, and he just said, "Hey, I'll see you, 651, #1. Take that."
That was our final pair of Pro Stock. Let's go back to the top end with Tommy Johnson Jr.
Oh, God damn.
Hey, Erica, she got out of the car and she goes, did we really run on 51? Yes, you did, but it's number 2. But do you feel like you have an unfair advantage after racing Pro Mod down here twice after last season? You got a little unfair advantage on these guys.
Well, we definitely have some laps down this racetrack, but I wouldn't call it an unfair advantage. You know, all these guys work really hard on their race cars, but I want to give a big shout out and hats off to my crew. We're down 3 very important men. Mark Ingersoll had a double lung transplant. Jake Hairston's going through some chemo right now, but they're riding with us, and Robert's at home too. So everybody's really stepped up to the plate and pulled their weight. And for us to go out there tonight on the night session, it's the best run we've made all week. And obviously we're all a little bit under the weather. I've lost my voice, but that makes my blood flow and it makes me happy. So it's a great starting point. We got 3 runs tomorrow and 1 more night session as well. So hold on, we're coming.
That 51 made her feel a little better.
It was a great run, but you talked about it, Mike. She was under the weather, and you hear her up in that interview. And when you have to react and you've got to be on, and she talked about the crew, everything that they've put into it. She's got to be able to get in there and do the job, but that's got to be tough.
It's tough, but when you've done it long enough, you know it becomes a little bit easier because it's like when I always had nerves before I got into the car to make the run, and then once everything starts up, you just focus on doing your job. And let's face it, it's only 2 minutes that you got to stay focused when you count the burnout and everything and the running and pulling off the track. So you can find it, especially when you have the experience that Erica has, and go out there and make that perfect run even when you're under the weather. And she rose to the occasion like she always does.
Track prep happening now. Let's go ahead and get back down to the top end with TJ.
Well, Dallas Glenn, 651 and 4 thousandths, your number 1 qualifier. That's a great way to start.
Absolutely. That 2000s that Greg got me kind of at the end of last year kind of bit him because it put me in the good lane for tonight. But no, that was an excellent run. We've been here all week. The KB guys have been working their tails off in the shop all winter long. We got some new stuff this year, so I think we're going to be good. It was an excellent run. I can hand it to Rob Downey and Greg Anderson, Dave Connolly, everybody at the shop that's worked their heart all winter long to make that run possible right there. I just get to do the fun part and drive. So I think it was a great run, and hopefully we can put 3 more good ones tomorrow.
He's lying. He wanted a 49. He told so down and got out.
Always getting greedy, aren't they? Well, you take a look at the crowd here coming, getting ready to watch some Fuel Funny cars and Top Fuel dragsters go down the racetrack. Got a little bit of track prep going on, and it's going to be, I think, exciting based on what we saw with Pro Stock. It started out a little bit tough, but look what it ended up with. Number 1, Dallas Glenn with that great 651.5. Erica right behind with a 651.9. All the way down to Chris McGahey in the number 10 spot at a 657.4. So look how tight that is. I mean, 600ths of a second in the top 10 cars, and I've seen it closer. So that's pretty amazing.
16 car field for Pro Stock. So we're going to send a couple cars home. 2 of these guys or girls are not going to make it. You got Bo Butner coming back, Larry Morgan running this event as well. Corey Reed here for the first time in the Pro Stock category. Greg Stanfield trying to dust off the rust and dust off the dust and come back out as well, sitting on the bump right now.
Yeah, with 3 more sessions, this is obviously all going to change. But, Aaron and Troy Coughlin, I mean, all these guys on the bottom that didn't get down the racetrack are all good racers. So this is all going to change tomorrow, and it's going to tighten right up, just like that top 8 is right at this point.
See the track prep well underway. The next time we have cars out on the racetrack, we're going to burn some nitro. We're going to take a break, step away. We will be right back after this.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
Unleash your engine with Adrenaline Racing Oil's 100% PAO-based oil. The Adrenaline R Series is designed to unlock extra horsepower. Free up your engine to perform its best. Top-performing oils with FR3 nanocarbon technology. The same friction reducer used by top racers. Designed for any engine. Lab-formulated, dyno-tested, track-proven. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Welcome back to Bradenton Motorsports Park, the first qualifying session of the second edition of the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout. If you are just now joining us, you missed a tremendous qualifying field. 18 cars on the property in the Pro Stock category. Some great numbers, very, very tight competition. But next up to the line, once the track prep is over, will be Nitro Funny Car. Mike, the tractors are out. We saw them out with the flames, scraping and burning. What is it that they need to do in between Pro Stock and Funny Car?
Well, what happens with the Pro Stock is when they let the clutch out, they hit the tire hits the concrete or the rubber so hard it actually put bald spots in there. And the Pro Stocks, and they'll put that gold dust on it and they'll try to burn out through it and do it. And that's how they get theirs to launch. Fuel cars launch differently. They just they want a controlled spin. Let's say, you gotta have wheel speed. But they want a nice smooth rubber surface on there. So they'll go out there and they'll scrape the track, try to get it even, and then drag it with the tire drag so that's got that nice smooth surface to get that thing to launch. And then they'll go down track and they'll look at it and they'll drag it down there and they'll try to. And the key thing is you're trying to get it even because the reason you have a slick tire is instead of without no treads is because you have more contact surface on there. We obviously don't run in the rain, so that gives you the most amount of traction. It's the same thing on the track. If the track has undulations because the rubber's kind of pushed over on one side or the other, then you're losing that contact patch, and then that could affect your traction at mid-track. So, and back to the starting line. Back in the day when I was driving, some of the tracks in the summertime you couldn't get those bald spots really to go away very easily because we didn't have the equipment we have today. So my crew chief would have me do the burnout right through the bald spots, and then he'd go out there and he would look, and if the rubber stuck and it was a nice patch, he'd back me up right into it. But if he didn't, he'd move me off to one side, either inside or outside. But he'd always tell me beforehand, he says, if I'm moving you, it's going to be outside or I'm moving you inside. So I would know. So I'd do the burnout right through it, and then if they pointed, inside or outside, I knew where it was. It's going to have to be about, a tire width to the inside or a tire width to the outside, so you could get that perfect launch. But we got such good equipment now. I don't think we have that problem as much as we used to when I drove. That was a long time ago.
See the fans sitting in the stands watching all of that track prep take place right now. Last year, the crowd that was here, they got to see a show in the Funny Car qualifying sessions. History was made. It was a record run by Bob Taska. We were able to catch up with him and hear his thoughts on that 341 pass.
Bob, you made history at the Pro Superstar Shootout. First to break the 340-mile-an-hour barrier. From start to finish, all of the emotions. Tell us the story from Bob Taska's point of view.
Well, I tell you, it was an epic run, a run for the ages. It actually started, though, in Dallas the prior year. We ran 338 miles per hour. And I remember being so excited about that run. I came back to the trailer, and Todd and Aaron are looking at the run. They're like, oh, that's wrong, and we can make this better. And I'm like, guys, we just ran 338. They said, but this thing can run 340. We believe it. And we went into that off season, made a bunch of little changes. We get to Bradenton, and we're testing all day on a Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and Thursday, and the car's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And Thursday night, we pull up, and I'm like, wow, like we could break 340, and it was an unbelievable run, pulls hard, unbelievably hard. I get out of the car, and I'm looking at the slip. It's 339 point, exactly what Robert ran. I don't even want to remember what the number was, but I remember looking at the slip saying to Jamie Howe, is it the record? Is it the record? And she's like, I don't know. And then she's on her phone. She goes, no, it's not the record. It tied the record. And I go, are you kidding me? We tied the record? And we go back to the trailer Thursday night, and you know, I don't know whether to be happy or sad, right? You just run as fast as any human being's ever run, tied Robert. And I said to the guys, you couldn't have given me like maybe 0.01 faster? And then Friday came. And Aaron Brooks looked at me and goes, we got another shot tomorrow night. I said, okay. And we made 2 great runs in the afternoon, early evening session. And we go up to the last run. It was like I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's Taska versus Force. John's in the left lane, I'm in the right lane. And I remember in that moment, I'm in the car, and we were trying hard to break the 340 mile per hour barrier, and I started to get all this static through my helmet. And I just unplugged it. And I just said to myself, I just want to be alone. Like, I don't want anything interrupt me. I want to be able to focus. It was dark. There was no finish line light. And I just, as a driver in that moment, you just want to run the perfect line. You want to keep it in the groove and not do anything to scrub any ET off the race car. And I just remember the feeling. The header flames was like I was on fire sitting in the car hitting the throttle. And it wasn't probably a second later, it went pitch black. You can see the headers lay down, and it pulled so hard through the middle. And as long as I've ever felt the race car pull, and I don't know, I think I stepped off the throttle truthfully at 345 miles per hour because I didn't know where the finish line was. It was dark, and there was no way I was shutting it off early because you need everything you can get to the finish line if you're going to run that speed. And we come around the corner. I have no helmet, don't know what it ran. The guys aren't talking to me. So I'm totally in the dark about this thing. And I come around the corner, and the first thing I see is John Force's guys, and their heads were down. I'm like, whoa, this could be a good thing. I get out of the car, and I look at Jamie, and she's making these signs, 3, and she's going like this. I'm like, what did it run? What did it run? And she has it on film. It's probably the best film of the whole thing. And she said 3. I remember reading her lips, 341. And I threw my gloves up in the air, and it was like, I get goosebumps now. It's what an accomplishment. I give all the credit to my team and the work they put in, and Aaron and Todd coming together, you know, just 2 years into this program. What an epic run for the ages. I think it's one of the most significant runs in drag racing history. First funny car to break a barrier. First person to ever run 340 miles per hour. And truthfully, you know, at least for maybe everyone on the planet right now, it's probably the last time you're going to see a barrier broken, because 350 is going to be long after I'm gone. But it's just an incredible accomplishment. And one of the things that makes it so significant for me is how we did it when we did it. We did it at the pro, you know, all-star shootout race. It was just epic. Everybody was there. NHRA track, all NHRA timing equipment, so people chirped about that. We did something no one's ever done before. And here's the good news. We're coming back. We're coming back to Bradenton on February 6th to the 8th, and we want more, trust me. And when you give this PPG team, this Ford Mustang, all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, and all day Friday, there's a lot of shots at an unbelievable racetrack. If you're thinking about coming, come on down. It's one of the most exciting races of the year, and last year was one of the most exciting runs in the history of the sport. Can we do it again?
Taska, 341 miles an hour.
That was a pretty accurate play-by-play of all of the runs and how it all came to fruition, and him realizing it. I'll never forget that. I thought he left his body at one point in time. 72 degrees right now. You can see the light show that all of the fans are getting here as the track prep continues. We will still have nitro when we get back, but 88-degree track temperature. Mike Dunn.
Well, that means the track's going to be tight, so you might be able to see another 340-mile-per-hour run if all the tune-up is there, and these guys are definitely going to be pushing it.
As this continues, we're going to step away, take a quick break. We do have Funny Car that will be next to the line. It's time for some nitro right after this.
Welcome to Bernie's Speed Shop. Let's go for a ride.
If you're looking for a hassle-free way to sell your car, bring it to Bernie's. We have an easy consignment process, and before you know it, you're going to be walking away check in hand. We inspect every car that we sell, so you can rest assured that only the best cars are in our showroom. So give us a call or check out our website and get your wheels running down the road today.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
There's no one way to power up, as long as Ford is your starting line. Because more important than the power you choose is what you choose to do with it. Gas, hybrid, or all electric, the power is yours.
I'm Joe Cargo, and I am a flight follower for Kalitta Air. The schedule at Kalitta Air, we work 4 days on and 4 days off currently. It allows me to maintain work-life balance. That allows for time off outside of, just constantly being at work and being able to decompress. That's part of the reason I'm here, and it's definitely a major perk.
Welcome back to Bradenton Motorsports Park. We are getting closer to time to burn some nitro with Funny Car in their first qualifying session for the second edition of the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout. The Musco Light Show going on right now for all the fans that are on the property. See the crew chiefs going up now. Take a look at the starting line, see what they have to work with after the track prep is nearing completion. Let's take an opportunity to find out, what is a nitro funny car?
Funny cars. You may know them as floppers. 11,000 horsepower, 340 mile an hour run-in, nitro burning machines. In this class, you'll see favorites like Ron Capps, Jack Beckman, the Hulk Matt Hagan. Once the hood goes down, that driver is sitting there right behind that nitro burning engine.
And we will get ready for the first qualifying session for those nitro funny cars. But before then, we're going to take a chance just to take a very quick break. Track prep is still going on. You see the tractors out there right now. We'll be back right after this.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
How you choose to power up is up to you. But if you want the horizon chasing, rubber burning, dream building, adrenaline pumping power to do, Ford is your starting line. Gas, hybrid, or all electric, the power is yours.
Hey, it's Ron Capps. Now listen up. There's a lot of components that we put in these nitro funny cars that not only we think is the best, but absolutely has to have the performance, but it also has to have safety to keep drivers like myself in the nitro funny cars from getting hurt. The engine is right in front of my feet. So if there's a failure, it's going to hurt me as a driver. It's also going to hurt performance. That's why Guido, our team, count on the best. And it has to start with a crankshaft. And thankfully, we run Callie's crankshafts.
I'm Bob Taska III, driver of the PPG Dark Horse nitro-powered Mustang funny car. PPG and I know a few things about great finishes. PPG's high-quality products help me with speed at our collision centers and, of course, on the racetrack. PPG is more than just a paint company. They deliver first-rate quality, service, and support. Taska and PPG, partnering together, we finish first.
Welcome back to Bradenton Motorsports Park. You see the tractors still out there getting the work done to get ready for some nitro power, 11,000 horsepower to be laid to the rubber. But if you were with us a few moments ago, we listened to Bob Taska give the play-by-play of that 341 mile an hour pass that he was able to make last season. One of the things that he mentioned, Mike Dunn, was how dark it is down the racetrack. We see the Musco lighting that's here. It's at the starting line. Get you down the racetrack for all of the fans, certainly. But when you're behind the wheel and that body is down, how are your senses different at night versus daytime runs?
Well, at nighttime, you're picking up your points, and you're hoping there's a light in the middle of the track around the finish line, but I could tell you, 340 miles per hour in a funny car, I mean, that's got to be really hard to see, especially with the header flames as high as they're a lot higher than when I drove funny car, and that's got to be a bit of a distraction to try to be focused straight ahead. But also, back in the day, I drove at tracks where they just had lighting. They had stadium lights in Sacramento, where just off of the starting line, there was nothing down track. So the farther you went down track, it got darker and darker. And at the end of the racetrack, they had some guy that just drank a six-pack of beer holding a flashlight. You just drove towards him to make the turnoff, So the tracks are safer. But I'll tell you what, going 340 miles per hour at night on any track, how well lit it is, I'm telling you, that's an e-ticket ride.
See Jack Beckman up at the line, taking a look at the racetrack himself. It's not just the crew chiefs. It's not just the crew that go up there and see what's there. Drivers do it as well. when you're going to get behind the wheel, what is it you yourself want to know?
Well, as a driver, normally you don't necessarily look at the starting line. You look at where, the crew chief's going to want you to stage, and then you look down track where the groove is. And a lot of times I would confer with the crew chief. Okay, where do you want me? If it gets like 150 feet, do you want to be the inside of the groove? Do you want to be outside, or do you want to be dead center? Because sometimes it makes a difference. Because there's different tracks. Like for instance, when we raced at Phoenix, in the right-hand lane, you want to be to the right side of the groove when you made the transition off of the concrete, because if you're right in the middle of the groove, when it made the transition off the concrete, there wasn't as much rubber to the left, and when that left tire gets in less rubber, what does that do? The right tire's hooked more, so it drives the car to the left. So when you make that transition, if you're right on the edge, coming off that transition at that point, you're going to be in good rubber going down the rest of the racetrack. So most drivers, that's what they look at. And Robert Height and I used to talk about this, it's easy to say that, because a lot of times it's hard to get the car to go over there, especially now you can't jerk the wheel. You want to kind of finesse it over. So you try to have a plan that, okay, at this point I want to be, 300 feet, I want to be to the inside. And like I told, Robert and I talked, he said, you may not be able to get it there, but you got to at least know that that's where you need to be. And psychologically, when you launch, you're going to just you're not going to force it there, but you're going to try to make sure you guide it there if you can. But sometimes those things go crazy and they'll make a left-hand turn and throw the whole thing out the window. But you got to have a plan, and that's what drivers, I think, go out there and look at.
I cannot imagine all of the things that you drivers process in just those split-second times. And we're so fortunate because not only does Mike Dunn have experience behind the wheel of a Top Fuel car as well as a funny car, Tommy Johnson Jr. also experienced behind the wheel of both of them. Tommy, you're down at the top end. What's your take on this night running?
Yeah, watching the event last year, I was questioning how hard it was to see going down the racetrack because it looked a little dark on TV. Being here in person, the lights are a little brighter than they look like on TV, but it's still dark. The way these cars vibrate, you're sitting back there behind the engine, the windshield's vibrating, the lights are flickering. It's really tough at night. It's not something I look forward to, those night sessions. They run really well, and they run really quick, but they're sometimes really hard to get them down there. And, I made one run in Dallas that I think it feels like it's going straight. I really couldn't tell, but I run it down the lights anyway. But it is a challenge at night. It's you kind of guide off the guardrails sometimes because they're white. The track is black. The end of the track's black. So these guys have their work cut out for them in the funny cars at night. Top Fuel's not so bad, but the funny cars are a challenge.
Thank you for that perspective as well. It's interesting, the different takes on it. Up and down the pits, really. I mean, everybody has their favorite conditions to run in. Before we get cars up to the starting line, let's take a look back at last year with Courtney Enders.
Here's your eliminations highlight from the 2024 Pro Superstar Shootout in Funny Car. Now, only 8 cars qualified for this event, so we will have 3 rounds of eliminations before we give away $250,000. Your first pair up is going to be J.R. Todd in the DHL Funny Car against Matt Hagan. Seems like J.R. Todd has some major troubles on the starting line and cannot get this thing staged up, and Matt Hagan will make a solo run as he moves on to round 2.
Far end, 423 with a 9, 223.580.
Second pair is going to be Paul Lee versus Bob Taska III. Now, don't forget in qualifying, Bob Taska broke all of the records going 341 miles an hour. Will that translate to race day? Paul Lee has troubles, major troubles early on crossing the center line, and Bob Taska moves on to round 2 with a 392. If you are a fan of drag racing from way back, you may think we're in a time machine here to the 90s. Cruz Pedregon versus John Force. This is 2024. You did hear that right. Cruz Pedregon, John Force in round 1 of eliminations here. Both of these drivers have been driving for decades, multiple time world champions each. John Force gets off the line first, and the 16-time champion blazes down the drag strip with a 4:04.4, moving on to round 2. Alexis DeJoria and Austin Prock. Now, this is Austin Prock's first race in a funny car, and let's see if this can actually make some history here. He leaves first on Alexis, and she has trouble early on. Austin Prock with a 391, getting his first round of eliminations win in a funny car.
915 at 326 miles an hour.
I've done the math. Austin.
Well, that's part of the story of the first round of eliminations from last year. But before we can even think about what's going to happen on Saturday here this year, we've got to get through qualifying. We've been promising Nitro and Mike Dunn. We have our first pair of funny cars ready to roll.
Yeah, you got Bobby Bodie out there. He looks like he has some problems getting that thing in reverse. He's going to go alongside of Dave Richards. And I'll tell you what, it's, you know, they can push the thing back, but the key is he's going to have to be able to get it in fourth gear to make sure that he can get it to the starting line to stage it to make the run.
We talked a lot about all of the testing that's unfolded over the last couple of days. Teams having the opportunity to make 10 different testing passes before this qualifying session tonight. Bobby Bodie, Del Worsham, that team did not take that opportunity. This is their first time down the racetrack.
Yeah, so there's going to be a little bit of jitters from Bobby Bodie, Bob's his dad. But, you know, he's made enough passes now. He's got, you know, he's not a seasoned veteran, but he's made enough passes to know how to do this, obviously. And Dave Richards, same thing. He's kind of worked his way up, ran a limited schedule last year, but he seems to just keep getting better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And that's what it takes to get better, just keep making laps.
Problems for both down track, but as those cars launched, everything up here in the booth right behind them started to rattle.
Wow, we heard a pretty big kaboom out of the Bobby Bodie car. Looked like about half track, but Dave Richards was having problems of his own too. So I don't know what happened first. It was kind of crazy out there on that run. Dave Richards did run a 397 at 294. I think he might have just got over towards the wall a little bit and maybe got to spin the tires or hurt some pistons. But let's take a look at Bobby Bodie and see if we can tell what happened. Watch the right side of your screen. You can see the thing drives out of the groove. He brings it back in. It got loose. He pedaled it, and I don't think it kaboomed. I think he just pedaled it, maybe had a little bit of a backfire, but it smoked the tires, and he wisely got out of it. Dave Richards makes a decent pass with that 397.
Mentioned the fact that Bobby Bodie pedaled it. First time behind the wheel of somebody else's car, Del Worsham's machine. You as a driver, do you pedal it in the first qualifying session?
Well, I mean, you got to be in contact with the crew chief and figure out what they want to do too, because you know Del's calling the shots, and I don't know if they communicated that or if they just went up there and said, "Hey, go down there and see if you get down the racetrack." When the thing started moving towards the center line, obviously he had to correct. And what happens now? These cars are so fast now. Back when they were running slower, when I drove funny cars, you could go out there and get it towards the center, and you could make a big adjustment on the steering input and get the car to not smoke the tires and move over. But now there's so much horsepower, 11,000 horsepower, that when that thing moves over towards the center, he had to put the pretty good amount of steering input in it to keep it from crossing the center line. But then what happens is it upsets the tire. It loses traction when you put that much input into it, because the things just make 11,000 horsepower and they're saying, hey, I ain't gonna take this.
You heard the pop in real time. Let's take a look back, see if you hear anything different.
You see it go off the side. I mean, I think it spun the tires and it sounded. I mean, well, I definitely heard a backfire, but it doesn't look like it on air, you know, on the video. It looks like he just spun the tires. He got back on it, and it might have went up there and just kind of banged the blower just a little bit.
There is J.R. Todd. Beautiful throwback livery. On the side of that Coletta machine. New look, new crew chief. On the other side of the racetrack, we have Chad Green.
Yeah, Green, one of those drivers that just keeps getting better. He's always competitive when he comes out there, and he was kind of, I mean, I had never really heard of him, and I started kind of paying attention a little bit, and I'm like, man, this car runs really well. He was working with Tim Wilkerson before, but J.R. Todd in the other lane, that beautiful paint job on that race car is a tribute to the late Scott Coletta, who a lot of people forget. They always considered him as a top field dragster driver, but he drove funny car back in the day. He had one national event win, and I was there. It was at the grand opening for the Houston Raceway Park. I believe it was in 1988. So this is the paint scheme, the replica of that was on that car at that time when he won that race.
Looks great on the side of that machine. I mentioned the new crew chief, Dickie Venables, now over making tuning calls for J.R. Todd, their first weekend working together. We talked about the new crew members, but new combination, crew chief and driver, there's a lot of things to learn.
That was a bang.
Trouble for
I heard
Jack
that one
Reed,
for
too.
sure.
As they get down the track, one of the interesting things about the new tuner combination of Dickie Venables and J.R. Todd. Dickie Venables was with Matt Hagan for years and years and years. There's a 110-pound difference between Matt Hagan as a driver and J.R. Todd as a driver. Getting off of the starting line is where that weight is different. And for the first time in a long time, Dickie's having to move weight around the race car.
That will definitely make a difference. A lot of times what the teams do, if they have the fire extinguishers up front in front of the front axle by the fuel tank, because their driver is heavier. So for J.R. Todd, they might move those two behind the driver on the rack behind that holds the body, so that transfers that weight. But you still have to make adjustments on the car, and Dickie Venables will figure it out. I think this is the biggest move that's going to make the biggest difference. Dickie Venables going over, working alongside John Oberhofer with J.R. Todd, who's a great driver. They'll get that thing figured out. You saw Chad Green go down the racetrack. He was on a decent run to about the 8th mile, and then all of a sudden it looks like it started, the engine looked like it went south. Flames went down and the backfire, the engine, or supercharger backfired at the top, and obviously slowed it down on the other end to only 259 miles per hour. Only 259.
Only 259.
When I got my funny car license nitro funny car license in 1977 at Orange County International Raceway, I got it, and you had to run within 10% of the national record, and I went 652 at 212 to get my fuel funny car license, and now Pro Stock, they'd laugh at that. That's how far we've come. When
you got out of the car, how fast were you going?
When I got out of the car, top fuel, my best run was a 449 at 331 miles per hour and a quarter mile. And now I called my old crew chief, Ken Vinny. I said, these cars are running so fast now. You know, they're running 1,000 foot. I said, let's take that run. Give me the numbers off of that, because we did it 3 times in 2001. We had a good running car. I said, what was our 1,000 foot elapsed time? He said, 482, and those are some of the best runs. So now you got 462 that Brittany's going. So if you did the factor into the quarter mile, you just say 2/10 right there. Well, that's a 429 in the quarter mile. But wait, that doesn't stop there, because what happens was my 8th mile speed was 276 miles per hour. Now when these guys are running, I don't know what Brittany's 8th mile speed, but I'm pretty sure it was probably between 296 and 299, somewhere in that range. And that speed difference at 8th mile is going to translate to a lot more elapsed time on the other end, and I don't even want to think about how quick and fast these cars would be able to go in the quarter mile.
Now going to the 1,000 foot, that is here to stay. You saw Daniel Wilkerson there strapped into that Skag Power Equipment Nitro Funny Car, back for another full season of racing. His dad, Tim Wilkerson, stepped out of the car, now making all of the tuning decisions solely for that machine. Actually, this is the very first time Tim Wilkerson has come to the racetrack and does not have any of his own driving gear with him.
Wow.
Bodies go down. Daniel Wilkerson will be in that left-hand lane. Over on the right-hand side, you're going to see Bob Taska. We saw what he was able to do last year. A 341-mile-an-hour qualifying pass. And that 4th session of qualifying, his crew chief, Aaron Brooks, said it was one of the worst things that they ever did. Because every race that they went to after that, the fans, they wanted it. They wanted another 341, and they were just not able to give it to them.
You know, the best thing out of that interview, you realize it took him over 2 minutes to talk about a run that lasted 3.8 seconds. And we all do it, trust me. It's amazing what you get out of the race car and you start telling what it did and what it felt there, and all of a sudden, you just spent 2.5 minutes talking about a 4-second run. Yep, that's how it works. But Bob gave a perfect description of what happened. I loved that interview. It was really awe-telling. You see Todd Okahara there, also working as a crew chief on there, co-crew chief with Aaron Brooks. And I tell you, Todd's been around for a number of years. Daniel Wilkerson, the kid, I mean, he's tough. And the old man didn't bring his fire suit, huh? He finally gave it up. Hell, I gave up a long time ago, Tim. Let the kid drive.
I asked Daniel, well, would he be able to wear your fire suit? And Daniel said he probably could, but he couldn't wear my helmet, and he didn't bring anything. So Tim Wilkerson very firmly saying, I am done driving this machine. Daniel Wilkerson getting to live out the dream now. It's what they envisioned years and years ago when he was a little kid, that they were going to Wilkerson at 386. Bob Taska, another one of the drivers getting bitten by that right-hand lane.
A little surprising there. You know, I would have thought Taska would have had a good handle on it. I mean, I know we saw Pro Stock have problems with the right-hand lane, but that doesn't always translate to Feel Funny cars. But obviously there's something there on the starting line that seems like they might be missing.
Bob Taska making the run down to the top end. 3 more qualifying sessions tomorrow. Getting to qualify your way into our 8 car field. 8 cars will make it in for eliminations on Saturday.
I'll tell you what, Daniel Wilkerson, that 386 and 313, that was a nice pass. Watch the right side of your screen. Car made a little move right off the launch, just reeled it back in. I think it was charging through the middle. I think he went 287 at the 8th mile to run that 386. And a funny car, god dang, those guys are running fast. Scares me.
Yeah, they'll be happy with that run. Earlier in testing, Daniel Wilkerson had a pass where he ended up in the sand trap, did not have the parachute. So this is going to make him a lot happier when they leave the racetrack tonight, get to come back tomorrow, his best run of the weekend. Still more pairs to go. You see Matt Hagan will be up, and Ron Capps will be over in the right-hand lane. For Matt Hagan, talked about his crew chief, Dickie Venables, no longer there, making that move over to J.R. Todd. But you see a lot of familiar faces if you watch a lot of drag racing. It's Alex, who was always the car chief, now getting a go up in the lounge a little bit more, assist in the tuning with Mike Newson, Stretch, as we always hear Matt refer to him. He's been with, those two have been together, Matt and Stretch have been together for 15 years. And he's now getting the opportunity to make the tuning calls after being under Dickie Venables for so long. But think about the lessons he was able to learn.
Yeah, and they've got the records. I mean, Dickie Venables, I'm sure, left them there so they could just take off on their own and manage it. And I believe they brought Phil Schuler, if I'm not mistaken, in to also help out. Phil's one of these really guys who can oversee things and really give some common sense answers to the questions.
So get ready for their burnouts. Let's get down to the top end with Tommy Johnson.
Hey,
drives different. Doesn't drive the same.
Hey, you know, I saw you earlier today. You were a little hot when you come out of the car, went off into the sand, come out with a different chassis, go 386 right out of the box.
Yeah, Tim Wilkerson's the man. I'm so proud of these Skag Power Equipment Ford Mustang boys. It's always so demoralizing when you have brand new stuff and you tear it up on the first freaking run you make. So we kind of had our chins down, but I said, I will not let this place kick our ass. We will curb stomp this thing before we leave here. And we did it.
He's always a little excited.
Good to see him with a smile on his face. They certainly earned that in a new chassis, so a lot of work went on this afternoon to get that car ready for qualifying. But good news is Tim Wilkerson might not have his gear to drive, but he definitely had another car that was prepped and ready to go. So,
boy, was it ready. That was a really, really nice pass to come back from that beach trip.
Matt Hagan now with the body down, pulling up to the tree. Very quickly you saw Ron Capps there.
Yeah, Ron Capps, both these cars look good in testing, and I'll tell you what, it seems like Matt Hagan, they haven't really missed a beat either with the crew changes. They've come out, they've been very, very consistent. So these are two cars that have ran well up to this point. Let's see what they can do right now.
Both cars able to get down to the finish line at 386 for Matt Hagan. Another 386 in that right-hand lane for Ron Capps.
Those were two good side-by-side runs. And speed 331 to Matt Hagan. He was running a little bit faster than the 8th mile and on the top end. Ron Capps almost looked like he may have hurt it a little bit. And I don't know if he shut it off. He went 327. If he shut it off early, it wasn't very early. It's two very good passes, though, side by side. Another look at it. You can see the launch here. Matt got the advantage off the starting line. That's why he was so far ahead at the finish right there. Capps, like we say, it's qualifying testing. We're not working on reaction time. Some drivers use to test it, try every run. A lot of drivers, they just go out there and wouldn't even worry about lights qualifying and just step up. I was never able to do that. I didn't necessarily practice try to push a good light, but I always try to be consistent to where get a good light to where I could only maybe improve 1 or 2 hundredths of a second and have that consistency going to race day. I wasn't good enough to sit there and be lazy during qualifying.
See John Force there at the start line. Jack Beckman, Austin Prock, two John Force Racing drivers up to wrap up the car. First qualifying session, great to see John back out at the racetrack, but for him as somebody who is given everything to the sport of drag racing, to not be behind the wheel of the car to kick off a new season, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, I'm sure it is on John. He loves the sport so much. He loves driving these fuel-funny cars. But, right now, Jack Beckman, he's been doing a good job. These are your number 1 and 2 finishers last year. Austin Prock winning the championship in his rookie season in funny car. And boy, what a job he did. And that entire team, Jimmy Prock, Thomas Prock, Austin's brother, helping with the tune-up. That car was flawless. John's got to be so proud of what he's put together here. And then he brings Jack Beckman in. And Jack was, he just stepped right in there. He had that little issue with the medical issue in Dallas. Otherwise, he might have been right there as he was getting points in John Force's play.
That is Jimmy Prock, saw on the right-hand side of the car as the body went up. There is Jack Beckman, second place finisher, as you mentioned, from last season and for the full season. Austin Prock, that was one of the things that he said, last year we got into such a groove, and really that groove started off here at this event. He is the reigning, defending funny car winner from the Pro Superstar Shootout from last season, and that being the first taste of working with his dad and with his brother and going through the motions and then being able to find victory. He was able to carry that through the whole season, becoming an NHRA champion, looking to do the same this year. Side-by-side in drag race, Austin Prock, a 381. Jack Beckman with a 386.
I'll tell you what, and that's not Austin Prock's quickest run. They've gone 380 already this weekend. Jack Beckman with that 383 right there, 329, 332 for Austin Prock. And we talked about how it all started here last year for Austin on that road to the championship. I talked to him last year, the first 8 runs, they couldn't get down the tree, so they barely got past the Christmas tree. And then all of a sudden they got together, came away with the win here, and then they never looked back. Right now, they're starting off right where they left off last year. Another great pass, and this car's been consistent all through testing, and now including the first qualifying session.
For Austin Prock, he was beating himself up a little bit at the start of all of these test sessions that we've had here this weekend, saying that he felt a little rusty. He grew up racing. He grew up doing some dirt racing and some late model racing and go-kart racing, and those are disciplines that you kind of do all year. You don't take this big off season because you can't just go out and take your Nitro Funny car anywhere you want to go. And for him, going through this motion of having to get back behind the wheel after taking a several month break, that was difficult for him.
Yeah, he did a lot of racing, some sprint car, go-karts and stuff with the Selzy brothers, Dominic and Gio, who have gone on to be big-time stars, and Gio on the Outlaw circuit, Dominic out on the Western circuits. And Austin obviously got his feet wet there, and you learn car control on that. That was a big deal with Gary and his Selzy and his boys. Let's go out and learn car control. You can always get back in a drag your funny car, because you got to have fun, especially in a funny car. You got to have car control. You got to know what to do when that thing's moving around, because you sit there and say they go straight. Everybody says, oh, they only go straight. They do everything but go straight. You take a look at our qualifying results from session number 1. Austin Prock up there at the top with a 381. And remember, it's an 8-car show. Bob Bodie on the bump with the 423 and early shut-off 214 mile per hour.
But you said it, this is only the first qualifying session. We will have 3 more qualifying sessions tomorrow. We're expecting another beautiful day, very similar conditions to what we had throughout the day today. We're going to get another night run as well. So a lot of opportunity for these teams to make it into the 8-card show. But if they don't make it, there is a special treat on Saturday. We're going to have a Nitro Funny Car up against a Top Fuel dragster.
You know, I did that once. Actually, I think I did it a couple times, but one time I did it. I drove Joe Amato's car because he had a medical issue, and I was sitting out that year in 2000 because we didn't have a sponsor, but I had the points to race in that specialty event in Bristol, and so I got the call, and lo and behold, Jimmy Prock was the crew chief, so I got to drive for Jimmy Prock, and we had mechanical issues all day, but it was just great. It was just great being able to drive with him.
Doug Foley will be the first of the Top Fuel dragsters out on a single. What you got, TJ?
Austin Prock, you picked up right where you left off last year. We talked earlier today about the bumps, and now it's nighttime. How was the bumps tonight?
Oh, this thing was a handful, man. You know, when you're running close to 290-some mile an hour and you hit a bump at 500 feet, all 4 tires are trying to come off the ground. This thing had the front end in the air, and as you saw, I got real close to the center line down there, getting towards the finish line. So got her all wrangled in. That's why we love driving funny cars. You know how it is. These things are beasts, and that's that adrenaline fix we strive for. This Cornwell Tool Chevrolet is fast this weekend.
It's getting a little dewy down here. You see, when they put the body down, the windshield was fogged up. So that was an interesting run.
I saw the fog on the windshield after the burnout, and Jimmy Prock took a really good look at it as the crew member was trying to clear it off for him. That's got to be tough.
Oh, yeah. What's the problem? You're getting ready to just go 330 miles per hour under 4 seconds, and your window's fogged up. What could go wrong? It's like these guys are something. But, we've all been through that now. Not at 330 miles an hour for me. It was a lot slower. But I'll tell you what, it gets your attention when that window starts fogging up going down the racetrack.
Doug Foley out on a single. The best run he's been able to make through the test sessions was a 381. Great conditions here right now. We'll see what he is able to do in this first qualifying session. Struggling to get to that 60-foot mark.
Yeah, it's all about controlling that wheel speed at the launch, and they try to get it in a range where it's a controlled spin that they can get the car going. It keeps the tire relatively flat, and then as the car starts going further down the track, they start applying more engine, more fuel, more clutch, and it just pulls on that engine. 11,000 horsepower, it just loves it. It just starts grunting and just starts pulling you. But you got to get to that point first, and the launch is always critical. And usually it's, it's kind of, I don't know how to say it. I mean, obviously people miss it, and I miss it, hit smoke tires at the hit of the throttle, but it shouldn't be, you got a range that you can be in there. The problem is if you get it too low on the wheel speed and it goes out there, it'll shake the tires and then get loose down track. So they got to find that sweet spot, and obviously they missed that sweet spot. They were a little bit too aggressive on that.
See a pair of Top Fuel dragsters ready for their burnouts. It will be Josh Hart in the left-hand lane. Sean Reed joining alongside him in the right. Josh Hart that team had a lot of work to do yesterday. They had an issue with the rear end.
Yeah, they broke the rear end on the run, and they're having an issue with some of the teams with the ring gear on these things. And what happens is when that ring gear breaks, the engine, 11,000 horsepower, the RPM so quick now, it's hard for a driver to catch it. When that engine goes up, I mean, it tears everything up when it breaks that ring gear, and it's a mess. It's a lot of work and a lot of money down the drain.
Saw this crew chief put his arm up there right before that burnout. It was Ron Douglas. He's joined by Jason McCullough, who's been added. That's a big off-season change for them, and the team's really excited about it. They're energized by what they've been able to do over the last couple of months.
Yeah, Jason McCullough, son of legendary drag racer Ed the Ace McCullough, been around a long time tuning these cars. Never drove one like his dad did, but his dad also was a tuner on those cars, and he was one of the best. In fact, he tuned Ron Capps at one time among some other drivers. and won some national events. Very, very talented, both Jason and his father.
Sean Reed in the right-hand lane. That was his crew chief, Rob Wendland. They're in a very different place than they were just a year ago. Last year, you know, at this time, they were still trying to get their car set up. They were still receiving parts. They were nowhere near ready to go into a season of racing. But now they're able to work on performance. Now they're able to actually go for some numbers.
Yeah, they just shut Sean Reed's car off with some kind of an issue. So you're going to see a single here from Josh Hart right now, and we'll see what he can do in that left-hand lane.
So 379 for Josh Hart.
So that currently gives him the #1 qualifying spot. We heard Sean's a little upset because, and I can understand, we've all been there, having to get shut on the starting line when you know the conditions are good and your car's been, you know, performing decently, and you want to just step this thing up and show you what you could do.
After they shut him off, here's a look back at that reaction you were talking about.
Yeah, he was. You know, he's trying to get out of the car too, and the belt hangs up on you. And it's like, holy hell.
Insult to injuries.
There you go. There's that temper tantrum. That's what my dad used to whip my ass for. Stop having those little temper tantrums. But yeah, trust me, it's understandable. I've been there.
Yeah, but you talk about everything that goes in the off season to get ready to come out here and kick off a new year. And this is a huge event. There is so much on the line. And you don't make it down the racetrack in these conditions. Maybe something happens tomorrow. Maybe you don't get the other good session. And now you're putting yourself into a position where you might not qualify. You might not get to go for the bragging rights and the big money that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done, you know, because you do have a whole season you're looking at. But, you know, you come to a race like this and, you know, you're racing for some pretty good money. Yeah, some big money on the race day. And something like that happens and you have an opportunity. But here's the other thing. It's like you said, you got the chip pull or whatever the heck that thing is. You know, it's luck of the draw. So, you know, you got another run. Just got to get in the show. You got to be one of the quick 8, and you can race on Saturday. So they're going to have a chance to get that thing back together and try to get in the show with 3 chances tomorrow.
Well, Josh Hart was able to make it down the racetrack, and now he's down with TJ.
You know, he's 379. It's #1 for now, and you just went down the racetrack. You know, you had a hard season last year, coming out here with a lot of enthusiasm. How you feel about this year?
Yeah, did 2024 even really happen? I don't remember that, but you know, hey, we got to drive these things every now and again, and it started to spin a little bit there. So I'm happy. You know, we're going down the racetrack. It's 2025. Fans are great. You know, we've had a great experience here so far, and we just look forward to keeping on. You know, turn up the heat. Try to be competitive this year and get some wallies.
He said, turn up the heat. How about we turn up the heat at the start line? Brittany Force, 2-time Top Fuel champion, qualifying alongside Tony Stewart.
Yeah, 2 legends right there. I mean, Brittany's done such a great job in her career. Still young, a couple championships, quickest run ever, you know, 362 in the 8th mile. David Grubnick just doing a great job of tuning that race car, and she's been doing a great job of driving. She's consistent, she's very focused, always has been, and she really is, you know, when I knew her back in the day, I mean, and I'm sure she still is that way, really hard on herself. She just would always wanted to be perfect, which is good. As a driver, I was the same way. I watched Bradenton. You always go out there and you want to make a perfect run the best way you can, and then hopefully the car will respond to it, and then everything comes together and you get that big time slip at the other end.
And here's Tony Stewart, first qualifying pass in Top Fuel of the 2025 season for him. And he said that when he got in the car for his first testing run a few days ago, he was very quickly reminded of how fast these cars are and all of the other disciplines. Most, not the run that he was looking for, but for Brittany Force at 367. See Leah there at the starting line at 367, 334 miles an hour for Brittany Force.
That was a good run. Obviously not her best. She had a 363 earlier today. Car was moving around a little bit down track. Tony was right there with her till just past half track. And then it looks like, I don't know if he started mixing up cylinders a little bit. The engine maybe was not quite perfect on the other end. Still went 328 miles per hour, nothing to sneeze at. Neither's a 373, but I'm sure they would have liked a little bit more. But based on what they've done so far, I think they'll take that run for now and build off of it.
And it is his best run of the weekend. It has not been the smoothest of starts for that entire team, really. And so they're going to have something to work with now and get ready for the 3 sessions of qualifying tomorrow. To Skag Power Equipment VIP seats there at the starting line. It's one of my favorite places to watch a drag race, right from the starting line. We're on the opposite side of the racetrack in the tower behind the left-hand lane.
Somebody told me it can get loud down there.
Can it?
Oh, yeah. It can get real loud.
See Sean Langdon will be in the left-hand lane. It was Justin Ashley in the Skag Power Equipment dragster there in the right-hand lane. Justin's a driver who, over the last couple of seasons, you mentioned it earlier about someone else, just the maturity and maturing each and every time. It seems like we watch him go down the racetrack.
Well, these two drivers are considered the 2 best levers in the business. Sean Langdon used to race, his super comp cars and stuff, and he'd race all the time in that, and he'd get really dialed in on that reaction time, and that transitioned over into the top fuel car. But then along comes Justin Ashley. Justin has just been wearing everybody out on the reaction time. He is consistently in the 030 range, 030 to 040, which is really mind-boggling when you consider and look at the other teams. He's pretty much almost 1.5 to 2 hundredths ahead of the rest of the field. Now, it seems like at the last couple of races, Antron, the Langdons, they kind of caught up. They kind of figured something out to where they've closed that gap up. But Justin, man, he has been unbelievable on that tree. And you give him a good race car, I guarantee he's going to bring it into the winner's circle.
Saw Mike Green, his crew chief, give him the thumbs up there, telling him everything's good, it's ready to go. All the work's been done. It's a 368 for Sean Langdon.
Justin 039 reaction time. Sean 061. I don't think he was pushing too hard. I mean, he's definitely capable of doing a 050 and 040, but man, consistent 030s, that's just something else. So you see Sean slots into that number 2 spot with that 368. Justin obviously up in smoke with only a 692 at 83 miles per hour. And just coasting at 83 miles per hour.
Sean Langdon teams had a great weekend. Take a look at this replay.
Header flames up above the rear wings. I mean, that's pretty high, folks. See the up in smoke Justin shortly after he gets past the Christmas tree. Not the case for Sean Langdon. He's got the candles lit all the way to the finish line and pulls both parachutes so he doesn't end up in the sand and makes a nice pass.
See as Sean Langdon climbs out of the car, the Clitta Air livery returning on the side of that dragster. As the driver, when you've made your last pass of the day, you know you're going to come back tomorrow. You get 3 more chances at it. What do you think about to prepare yourself?
Well, I mean, all drivers are different. I always like to go back and kind of debrief what happened on the run, and I like to kind of know what the team was doing as far as the tune-up. But my dad, when I wanted to learn how to drive, he says, you're going to go work on these cars first. You don't need to be able to know how to tune them, but you need to know how they basically work because it'll make you a better driver. So when something happens, you'll know what it is and you'll react better as a driver. So I always took that to heart as a big deal. And I would go back and look at what happened on the run. The other thing I would do too is I always get on the computer, especially at night. Like Bob Taska was talking, you can't see the top end. So I would go in there and I would look where I shut off. I would sit there in my mind and say, okay, I think I clicked it maybe maybe went 20, 40 feet past the finish line, 100 feet or whatever, but then I'd go verify it on the computer. Oh, I went 200 feet. I better fix that.
All right, final pair of dragsters. It's Doug Coletta and Antron Brown. But first, let's go down to the top end with Brittany Force.
367, number one for now. It's no 363, but I talked to your crew chief, John Collins, today, and he's my crew chief. When I said you're running pretty good, he smiled. How do you feel about this year?
I feel great. You know, just coming out here, it's good to be back with this Monster Energy team, David Grubnick, John Collins, and all the guys. We have a few new guys that are in new places. We have a couple new guys that are new to the team, so everyone's kind of in a different place, and we thought it would take us a while to get rolling, but honestly, we've been testing for 2 days, and we've been running very solid. Very proud of that. That's a killer run. That's a good start, not to just this event, but our season as well.
They're running really well. There's no doubt.
Taking it down, Doug Coletta at 365. Antron Brown at 373. That puts Doug Coletta right to the top.
332 miles per hour. Antron 373 at 331 slots him into the number 4 spot. And Doug Foley is in on that bump spot in the number 8 position for now.
Look at the smile on Alan Johnson's face. He is the crew chief for Doug Coletta. They won this event last year. Coming back, they've been strong. They've been strong throughout the weekend, but they have not been that strong. And you saw him put his hands up, and they were able to apply everything that he knows, all of the experience, and move themselves into that number 1 spot.
Yeah, and Doug Coletta, I mean, that match with Alan Johnson, overseeing that tune-up and always doing a great job. He's one of the best in the business, and he knows Doug. There's a lot of respect for what Doug is able to do in that race car. He's always on time. You know, he's just a consistent driver. And he's just one of those quiet, mild-mannered guys you would never know. But, boy, he gets in that top field car, straps in, and he's just an animal and just does a great job.
That was the final pair of Nitro. But this Ford Super Cobra Jet, the 1800, it's not running on Nitro. It's running on battery power.
So it's not going to be making very much noise, Jamie.
I can hear you a lot better now. But it's been
Thank
cool
you for that, Pepper.
It's been cool to watch this car run throughout the weekend, making the test passes, and very much so still, you know, learning and developing. It's kind of like it's a rolling laboratory.
It's actually fun to watch. Getting ready to do his burnout, and you're not going to hear anything. I can actually talk all the way through his burnout. You just kind of hear the tires squealing. Squealing, and the tire smoke comes out there just because of that friction on the track. Oh man, listen to that. And now the run is going to be very impressive. You're going to love this if you haven't seen it yet. This car on the launch, because electric motors have more torque than normally aspirated internal combustion engines. They launch harder. They just don't have as much through the middle as the big dragsters and fuel funny cars. But this thing, when he steps on the gas, it's going to launch and you're going to go, holy heck.
Getting to do the driving, even a wheel stand in an electric car.
That was 200 feet. 200 feet with the front end in the air. That was nice.
A 664, 131 miles an hour. One of the things that I love about Ford being out here and running this program is they're not choosing between power and electric. They're not choosing between combustion or electric. They're choosing to do both.
Yeah. You know, we love the noise of the fuel cars, but this is still pretty cool. I mean, watch this thing. And he's up on the wheelie bar. They got the wheelie bar set pretty high. Look how far he carries it. That's the 330-foot cone right there that he just passed. So he was almost 300 feet with the front end in the air, and that thing was accelerating the whole time. That was fun to watch.
That was fun to watch. Before we wrap up anything here at Bradenton Motorsports Park, let's hear from Doug Coletta. He's down with TJ.
All right. There we go. Now we got the mic working. But you win this event last year, come out of here, first session, number 1 qualifier. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, no, it really does. You know, this track is in incredible shape, and the competition's going to be tough here this weekend. So we got applied innovations on my car this weekend, and, you know, Alan Johnson and all these guys here we're all hungry to try to win this thing again, and we've got a long ways to go. We got a couple more qualifying sessions, and then we'll see what we got.
Get to come back and see what we got. They've got 3 more qualifying sessions tomorrow. We're going to take a look at the full qualifying results from Top Fuel, but before we do that, we're going to step away, take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Speed, power, performance, and top-notch results on the turf and on the track. Skag Power Equipment is mowing down the competition. Built by hard-working Americans in state-of-the-art facilities, Skag machines are made to last. Don't get left behind. Visit your local Skag dealer to discover the Skag difference for yourself. Skag, simply the best.
I'm Joe Cargo, and I am a flight follower for Kalitta Air. The schedule at Kalitta Air, we work 4 days on and 4 days off currently. It allows me to maintain work-life balance. That allows for time off outside of, just constantly being at work and being able to decompress. That's part of the reason I'm here, and it's definitely a major perk.
We drive performance. We drive passion, a background in drag racing, and a future in all forms of motorsports. Because success in one sport isn't enough. Pushing ourselves to be the best. Climbing every mountain. Topping every peak. Until you see Fuel Tech everywhere.
Welcome to Bernie's Speed Shop. Let's go for a ride.
If you're looking for a hassle-free way to sell your car, bring it to Bernie's. We have an easy consignment process, and before you know it, you're going to be walking away check in hand. We inspect every car that we sell, so you can rest assured that only the best cars are in our showroom. So give us a call or check out our website and get your wheels running down the road today.
We're back at Bradenton Motorsports Park. The first session of qualifying now officially wrapped up for our 3 professional categories. Take a look at the results. The top 8, the 8 that made it down the racetrack, Doug Kalitta at 365.
That was a nice pass. Brittany right there with a 367. Sean Langdon 368. All the way on down to Doug Foley, who smoked the tires at the hit of the throttle, but still hangs on to that number 8 spot for now.
He'll get 3 more chances to qualify tomorrow. We'll see what we shift around here. Doesn't really matter because they're going to do the chip draw to be able to get into eliminations on Saturday, find out who they're going to race against. But one thing's for sure, Mike Dunn, today was a lot of fun, and we had some great runs.
I'll tell you what, this format is fantastic for the racing and for the fan, and I love what Flow TV's doing on this.
We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. for some more sportsman qualifying, 3 sessions for the professionals. You're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you come back and join us.